Hi everyone, Matt Lawler here again. Great for you to join us on this Tuesday session of the Thrive in the week that we're calling Loan Market Week. So for those of you that have just joined us, Cole, yesterday we went through the Loan Market Way in quite a bit of detail as an overview, talking about why we're doing it and the positioning about the fact that we are going to roll out the Loan Market Way despite best interest duty being delayed until the 1st of January 2021. Good reason for that. It gives us an opportunity to start to embed some of the new tools. And one of the new tools that we're going to be talking about today is the goal setter. So that is in the part of the Loan Market Way, which we call the meeting. It's a really important part of the process with your client, where you're starting to understand all of the things that the client's trying to achieve. And now we're looking to document that on the file and make sure that it's embedded into the process. So to run through the meeting, we've got Neil Manuel. Neil's going to simulate a discussion with the client and run through it. Again, as we did yesterday and as we've done in previous sessions, use the chat function to start to get the questions. If you want a little bit more detail, if you want to ask some questions to get some clarification, we'll be addressing a lot of those questions as we go through, but we'll also look to get those questions answered by the end as well. So a good opportunity for you to ask questions on stuff that you're not quite sure about or stuff that you would like a little bit more information on. And Neil and I will cover that as we go through. The other thing is, can you just put your, make sure that you're on mute. When there is background noise, it does dominate the video. So we want to make sure Neil is uninterrupted as he runs through it, and then we'll be answering questions on the chat box. So with that, Neil, I'll pass over to you. You've got control of the screen. Why don't you run us through the meeting?
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so the meeting, so the goal setter is a new sort of option in my CRM, and the idea around the goal setter has multiple meanings around it. So firstly, there's an element of this which is in relation to the client experience, the experience they have working with you. And in addition to that, ways that we can support you around getting more detailed quality notes recorded into the system. So I'll talk you through the flow of how the goal setter works and where that sits in the process from lead all the way through to settlement. So if you look at the end-to-end Loan Market Way, we've got first chat, client discovery. We're up to part 3 of the Loan Market Way now, which is the portion where you review the online fact find, and then you move that into essentially a goal setter, the goal setter part. So we'll focus on that part today. So what's it all about? How do we prepare for and run the meeting? And some policy and process tips. We'll go through that now. So essentially, running a great meeting essentially is a mixture of 3 things. So you're building rapport with the actual customer. You guys all do this today. This is not new to anybody on this. You build rapport. You explain the process to them. This is what we're about to do. This is what we're going to go through. And here are the steps involved. And probably a little bit more of the newer part would be getting more quality data into the system, more quality notes into the system. So essentially you can conduct your best interest duty research. And that's what we're going to probably touch on mostly today with the goal setter. So why is it important? It makes the process consistent. So one of the challenges we have right now is a lot of brokers do things very different ways. And the whole point of the Loan Market Way is so that there's some form of generic approach in terms of the process from lead all the way through to settlement. There is also the bid requirements here in order to be able to prove that you've acted in the customer's best interest, how you educated them and respected their requirements and preferences. And then also the experience. The experience is a key thing here. You'll probably notice with the goal setter is when you're having an actual interview with a customer, the goal setter is a really nice back and forth conversation type tool, which is also a solid tool to record notes of anything that you're being told by the customer. So as has always been with you guys, nothing new here. You're preparing for the meeting, you book the meeting, you let them know you probably have sent out an online fact find. You'll send them a bit of a list. Here's the kind of things we're going to go through in the meeting. You may even have very early level discussion with them around, hey, ANZ have this 4K cashback, whatever it is. Very, very early level discussions while you're booking in that meeting. You'll explain to them what you're going to go through, goals, preferences, and then you're going to talk them through, well, here's our next step. So that doesn't change. That's all business as usual, which is what you do today. Once you send them the online fact find and they then send that, they complete that, you generally are going in and reviewing that online fact find. So you're having a look at all the data that they've put in, you're getting an idea of the picture, living expenses, assets, liabilities. Some of you send partial fact find, some of you send full fact find. Doesn't really matter. That doesn't change. It's the same process, and you'll review the fact find data with the information that they've put in there. For a lot of brokers now, and for some brokers not so much, but you may go in and do an early level servicing check before you actually do the appointment with the customer, just to ascertain if they're in a good position to borrow. And a lot of brokers now are starting to do credit checks up front, especially if they have some degree of uncertainty about the integrity of the client. They'll run some credit checks just to make sure that there isn't sort of anything here that's hidden that wasn't mentioned in the fact find. So you do that as per normal. And that will then take us through to the actual meeting. And that's you setting up the meeting. They might be a bit nervous. You might be a bit nervous if you're newer. You'll explain to them they're in good hands. We're with Loan Market. We're going to help you through this. And then the goal setter comes out. And this is essentially where the goal setter takes over how you're conducting that meeting, if you choose to use the goal setter in that format. So I'm going to take you through the goal setter now live as a demo on my CRM so that you guys can see how it flows and what it actually fills in. Just bear with me while I move over to my CRM. Okay, you should all be able to see my CRM screen. Just shout out if you can't, but you should be able to see it now. So in my CRM, there you would go into the lending tab, which is very similar to what you would do now. And you would find the online fact find that they've essentially filled in, which would have created one of these. And then you're going into the application. You're clicking view and edit to go into the application. So as you would do now, if you choose to review the fact find, you can click the view button to review the fact find. And you can fill in some things in there if you need to fill in some blanks. But what you'll see is a new button, which you'll all see now. This got launched last Monday, which is called the goal setter. So you're in the meeting with the client and you're going through to try and finalize things. Now, this could be over the phone. This could be in person. This could be over Google Hangout. They may visually see your screen or they may not see your screen. It's completely open to how essentially you want to do it. Before I click into it, I just want to reiterate again, the purpose of the goal setter is to help with the client experience, but also help you record better notes, which wasn't as heavy of a requirement in the past, but it's going to be a significant requirement going into the future. So you can press the launch button, which is here, and I'll take you through this, and then I'll show you alternative ways that this could also be filled in. So it's going to bring you to a screen. So in this case, my customer's name is Neil and Louise. They've both filled in the online fact find. I've clicked on the goal setter button. One is sitting to the left of me, one is sitting to the right of me, or they're on a Google Hangout, or however you do it, or you could just be over the phone. I'm going to click next. So in the next screen, all I simply have is 5 boxes: goals, preferences, profile, future, and team. So we're going to start with goals. So when I click on goals, what are you looking to do? My client's looking to get a better deal. And tell me a little bit more in detail. So I want you to take note of the notes that I'm putting into these fields, because this is really where the improvement needs to be. Customer wants to refinance their loan to get a lower interest rate. They recently had some high expenses come up with some cars and house repairs, which has made them review their financial situation. And they're looking at a different way in their life that they can save some money. A reduction in interest rate will benefit their current financial and personal situation greatly. So it's not War and Peace, but it's not one line either. So it's a nice summary of what the client's wanting to achieve and why they're wanting, what is their actual goal, what are they trying to do here. Is there a date they're actually working towards? You can choose that date, and then you simply click next. That is the first box done and dusted. Okay, that's it. Goals has now been completed. So you have assisted them in collecting the information and putting notes around what goals they have. We're now moving on to the next box, which is the preferences box. So through here, you follow this as like an interview guide. You know, who do you bank with now? I bank with ANZ, or if they're not on here, you would select other. Are you happy with the current bank? So my clients have told me no. So in the past, cool, I'll find you another option. In this case, I want to know why. I need more detail. I need to record notes as to why. Neil and Louise feel their existing bank ANZ has not passed on enough rate reductions throughout the year. They have taken note of all the RBA rate reductions that have taken place throughout the year, and have also been checking on how the new borrower rate has been dropping. But not much of this rate for the existing client has been passed on to the existing clients, which is why they would like to explore options outside of ANZ. Nice and detailed, gone into the why, good quality note. And then we're just going to move on to next. So is there any particular lenders you like us to look at? Yes or no? So in this case, my client said to me yes, and they've picked 3, which I've highlighted just by clicking on it: CBA, NAB, or Westpac. Why do you prefer these lenders? Once again, we've got to go into the detail here. Neil and Louise have spoken to many family members and friends who told them that they are very happy with these 3 lenders, so they're interested in exploring them, but they aren't stuck on them as the only options. The key outcome is being the reduction of the monthly repayment. Neil also mentioned that he liked the convenience of a local branch, which will make up part of the shortlisted lender options. So nice detailed notes as to why they have preferred these particular lenders. We're moving on to next. Preferences. So rate preferences, fixed variable or a 50-50 split or just general split. If we click on variable, why? You're going to see this a lot. Why is this important? You're going to see the word why more than you ever have. Why is this important? We need to prove that we've helped and answered this, both from a customer experience perspective. They want to take advantage of future decreases. They like the ability of a flexible repayments. And then I've added notes into that. With all the RBA reductions in the past 12 months, my clients like the idea of a rate that would move with any further RBA reductions. And take note of this part. I have explained to Neil and Louise that this will also mean choosing a variable rate doesn't guarantee that the RBA rate reductions will be passed on by their preferred lender, just like the situation they are in now. And also that if rates go up, this would apply to them as well. This once again is showing ASIC that we've gone into a level of detail to understand the customer situation. And we can prove that we understand it by this level of notes, if ever it gets to AFCA for whatever reason. And then we just press save. So that's the variable option. We're moving down to the repayment types, which are listed here. In this case, my client said to me they prefer principal and interest. Why do you prefer this? We've ticked the box. And then have I explained to them how principal and interest works, and do I have their understanding? I explained to Neil and Louise that the P&O repayments is the option that would reduce the loan balance the quickest. This is one of their key goals, and they acknowledge that this is certainly the right option they want. So once again, I've noted that they've acknowledged that the P&O is the option that they want. How do they want the repayments made? Fortnightly. So just keep in mind, you guys are already asking these questions. It's whether you're recording the responses is the key here. Nothing new here is in terms of the questions you're asking. Offset account. Why do they want the offset account? They've opted for this with their loan as they like the strategy of putting their wages into the offset account and the reduction that will have on the interest they pay. They acknowledge and understand how the offset feature works within the loan. Redraw. Same thing. They like the idea of excess funds sitting in a redraw facility. They take comfort in knowing that in future, if they need to access any of these funds in an emergency, that they could do so. They also understand that for some lenders, having access to redraw or an offset account may come with an additional annual fee. Nice and clear, we've explained it to them. There is a fee. or there could be a fee depending on the lender. I explained to them in a bit more detail how a regional facility works, and they've understood. Save and close. That is preferences completed. We're now moving on to profile. I'm not going to go into profile into too much detail. The reason being is because profile is basically the online fact find. If they've done the online fact find, this is essentially the same thing here. The parts I will just show you, and typically these would be the parts that you will probably end up having to redo with the customer based on what they've done in the online fact find. So in expenses, you'll get a summary of the expenses. Under each expense category, you'll see there's subcategories as well to go into that level of detail that's needed. Just quickly show you this and then we'll move on. You can enter this in, you can add, you can remove, you can do it monthly, weekly, fortnightly, whatever's flowing best in the interview with the client, you can then go through and complete all these information. And all this will move into my CRM, which I'll show you in a second. Nothing sort of new, it shouldn't be anything really new here for you guys. This is what's already being done in the online fact find. Assets, liabilities, just enter it in, vehicles, savings. So for all of it, you can just enter new stuff in if you need to. Add asset, put in the detail, save and close. So that's that part done, which you already do, which is why I'm not going to go into it too much. So the next box is a newer box, which is called future. This is a very crucial box in terms of best interest duties going forward. This is also probably the box which may have the largest amount of change in terms of how you conduct meetings today and the type of questions that you ask in those meetings versus the type of questions that you'll be needing to ask from the 1st of January onwards. So home, what's your goals in relation to your home? Their goal is to pay off the loan as quick as possible. They want to do this so that in the future they can access some equity to use towards a deposit to buy an investment property. And over time, a portfolio of investment properties. So tell us a little bit about your investment goals, if they have any. So they may not, and if they don't have any, that's okay. But if they do, it needs to be recorded in here. Me and Louise both love the idea of owning 2 investment properties by 2025. They are very keen on working with me and a financial planner on a strategy to get this loan paid down and accessing the equity to move on to their first investment property purchase. So if they've told me that information, if I've done my obligation and asked them that question, which all brokers should be doing, and they've given me that answer, then that is where I record that answer. What about family and lifestyle? A key goal Neil and Louise discussed with me is they want to take their family on a big holiday to America during the time their kids transition between primary to high school. Their plan is to keep aside 10% of their total pay per month and put it into an offset account linked to the loan till they hit 10 grand, which will go towards a trip and still reduce the interest. Now, we all know on this call, not every consumer is going to give you that level of detail to their future plans, but if the question is asked and they tell you that, this is where you want to be recording it. We definitely don't want to pressure an answer out of them though. Assets. Neil always mentioned that in year 2, that in a year or 2, they would like to upgrade their current Mazda 3 to a Mazda CX-5 to cater for growing children. I advised them that I will contact them at the end of 2020 to take them through some asset finance options. So once again, look at this as a client experience perspective. What you've done is essentially set yourself up for a new asset finance loan in a couple of years from now by asking this question. And what about wealth creation? Neil and Louise had mild interest in understanding more of the strategy of buying shares. I've referred them to a wealth market to contact them to set up a time for a discussion. And what about any other goals? And if they go, I don't have any, that's totally fine. But if they tell you, they've also mentioned to me that they wouldn't mind starting up a small savings account for a wedding for their daughters in the future. We'll look into lenders that offer multiple offset accounts. So once again, not everyone's going to be as accurate in terms of all this stuff as my clients were in this situation, but this is where you would be recording that. And then we press next. So what about retirement plans? What age are they planning to retire? Will they be retiring during the loan term? How would my client repay the loan? And any detail on that, any notes to add to that, things they may have told you. They told me they've got no intention of having the mortgage debt exceeding the term of their working career. They plan to pay it off or downside before they retire. Nice, short, solid notes, but it's enough. Anything that could have a financial impact, if they say yes, the options will be here. You can then get into the crux of it if you need to. For whatever reason, you can fill all that stuff in here. In this case, my client has said no financial impact for the future. But as a broker, I've done my obligation to ask the question. What is Louise planning to retire? 55. Same question. When? How? Any comments around that? Press next. Anything that could impact her financially? Yes or no? Click next. That is future, now completed. And the last box is called team. So I'm now getting towards the end of my client interview with the customer, right? This is wrapping things up in this client interview. So in team, do you have any general insurance? Yes or no? Moving services, would you like us to help with any of these type of things? Yes or no? What about financial advice or any lifestyle insurance? Clients wanted advice on how to set themselves up for 2 investments, which they told me about when I was recording their goals. Wealth Market to contact the client to arrange an appointment. And finally, home now. Do you want your gas, electricity? Do you want your internet looked at to see if we can get you a better deal? Yes or no? And if there's yes, put the information in there, press save and close. So what's happened now is we've completed the goal setter end to end. And the information that you've just entered in there, if I close the goal setter, is when you refresh your My CRM screen, it will all show up in here. Now, for whatever reason, if you are the type of person that just likes to data enter into here from top to bottom, then all you actually need to do for the additional fields is click and open it. So as you can see, what I filled in there has gone into here. If your preference is to fill it in here instead of clicking the goal setter button, then you can. If your flow for your business works better from top to bottom here, those fields can be filled in here. All the fields in the goal setter are in here. But things to keep in mind, that questions that are in here are not in the online fact find, because the online fact find is a customer facing tool, whereas the goal setter is for the broker to fill in. And that is why these questions aren't in the online fact find, because the broker is the one that should be initiating the discussion and recording these answers. That's the broker's role. So you can fill it in here top to bottom. All those same things are in here. And customers' objections, what are their objectives? All the goals are in here. Are you happy with your current bank? You can put those notes into here if you choose to. That essentially takes us to the end of the goal setter. So I'll just reiterate back before I hand back over to Matt. This is about your client experience, having a more flow, a more positive client experience. And in addition to that, this is about asking questions that will allow us to capture more detailed notes that would keep us safe in Best Interest Duties world. I'll hand it over to Matt now. We can open that up for questions. I'll keep my screen shared in case anything comes up. Over to you, Matt.
Excellent. Thanks, Neil. While you've been doing that excellent presentation, we've got a few questions throughout the presentation. So a few questions around the notes. Does it have spell checker? I think Dee's been answering a lot of those as we've gone through. The answer to that is yes. Importantly, a lot of this information that you're putting in here does flow through to the game plan. So we should create that link. We're going to talk about the game plan tomorrow, but once you enter this data, as Neil was saying, when you enter the data, we use it multiple times. So it does get picked up and then it does get put through to the game plan. So being fulsome in how this has been answered is actually quite important, because in the game plan, it will be replayed back to the client and the client will actually sign off that these were the important things for them. And that gives you your link to the fact that your recommendations are as per what your client told you what was important to them. Just going through there, there's a couple of, Aidan asked a question, wouldn't interest-only product allow them to save deposit faster for next property? Seems subjective to say P&I is the best way to plan for multiple properties. Was that in there? Was that a comment that you made, Neil?
That was for the purpose of the demo. So you, as an educated broker, would be able to define which product best suits and which repayment best suits your client. But
yeah.
The information in here is not real. It's just my demo system.
Yeah, so I think for each individual client, Aidan, there'll be circumstances which will lead you to which is the best structure for the client. Jeff Spillman, can you please confirm if we need to put comments into the box if we do not tick the other box in these sections? That is, if we tick another section, are notes still required? I'm not sure.
I can. Yeah. Do you want me to get that one?
Yeah, you get it.
Go for it.
So I'll show the actual section, or the section I think could be being referred to at the situation. I'll just bring it up. So I think what is being referred to is sections like here. So this box will only come up when the other button is clicked. So if you don't click the other button, the box won't show up. So it is important to, so in my opinion and going into the future, it is important to click that and have the box come up, especially if you've made the effort to do that little bit more extra education to your customer in terms of how the features work within a particular product. But that box only comes up when the other button is ticked.
Yeah, and those important discussions around features, fixed rates, variable rates, it's important to capture those because they can be replayed back to the client because they will be important components of why you've made the recommendation in the way that you have. I think that's where, Michael, your comment around flicking in and out of screens and maybe doing some comparisons. Absolutely. If you're doing this either in the office face-to-face or if you've got them on a Zoom, using other parts of the system to show them and educate them on different components, what fixed interest rates might be available, how that might impact the loan. All of that stuff is really important in educating the client and getting them used to how you're going to be packaging your recommendation.
It opens up as a separate window, which is good. So you can hover between the goal setter and MyCRM as I'm doing right now.
Justin's question regarding the referrals. Yes, if you're indicating here that you're linking through, those referrals will be made, but the extra comments might be why you need to go into the referral screen, Justin, if you want to put some more information or let the referral partner know a little bit more about the referral that you're making, then that's why you'd have to go into that referral screen as well. Jeff, sure we can ask the question in the broker appointment and the PA will transfer the answers into the MyCRM. Yes, that is fine. And as we've said yesterday, Jeff, we want to make it flexible for, we're not dictating how you would interact with the client. So yes, you could ask those questions, cover those things with the client, and then later put it into the goal setter. We have built it so that it is a nice flow with the client, so you could do it in front of the client, but we wanted to give people that option depending on what their business model is and how they interact with clients. What happens if the client picks a lender you are not accredited with? From Kieran Lay. Well, Kieran, that would be a situation today where you would have to explain to the client that you can't deal with that. So you're either going to get accredited with it if it's on the loan market panel, but it might be, say, UBank. As an example, UBank's not available through the broker market. If the client has a preference that, You just need to explain to them that that's not a client that's, you won't be able to do your research and you won't be able to make any recommendations that involve UBank because you're not accredited with them and you don't have access to them.
Matt, just to be clear, like UBank's logo won't be presented on that page. It's only the lenders on our panel. Yeah.
Sam's question, are we not technically obliged to declare everything to the bank which is recorded, which will affect their servicing? Yeah, look, Sam, this came up a lot last week in terms of, how far do you go in terms of answering the questions? Now, in terms of probing, particularly around future goals, the example of family came up quite a bit in terms of, how far do you go in terms of when does the family start and things like that. The question is always is always a generic question of the client about what are their future plans. Now, if the client has no clear plans and doesn't offer anything, then clearly you're not obliged to put anything in there. But if the client is very clear about some plans that they've got, that in your professional opinion will have an impact on their ability to pay back the loan, then as a professional, you are obliged to understand that more. And how ASIC described that in responsible lending is this term reasonable investigations. So that questioning would be would follow a client indicating that they have got a plan about something. But if the client has no clear plans and it's a maybe or a might be, then you just note that. But it doesn't have to be in detail in terms of the. But in your professional opinion, if that's going to affect the loan, you need to explore. And I think your follow-up question is, will it flow into AOL? Yes, it will flow into AOL. Kieran's question is around multiple applications. Neil, do you want to cover?
Yeah. So if you've got two applications at the top in the little menu button there, you can actually switch between multiple applications. So it'll bring up the goal setters. You could be working on 3 of them at the same time if you want to. It'll bring up the goal setters for each one of those applications that you can switch between, if that answers your question. Well, the other thing that's interesting is this particular part of future financial goals, this will duplicate itself into the other lending applications that you have to oversee. You don't need to redo this part 4 times or 3 times if you have multiple loans, but you can just switch between them up here.
Very good. And yes, Sam, spot on. If it's something that the client goes into, then it's our responsibility to declare that and do enough investigations that helps us be satisfied that it's either not going to have an impact, or if it is going to have an impact, that there's actually a plan to that you talk that through with the clients, that there is a plan. Joseph, your question has been quite popular. I might Dave McQueen's on the line I saw before. Dave, are you available to address that one? Because I know we addressed this a lot last week.
Yeah, sure. Cool. So Joseph's question is, so if a couple say they want to have kids in the near future, do we treat it as though the female applicant is on maternity leave? What's a reasonable approach for this? So, it's not a simplistic answer. Matt mentioned around reasonably foreseeable. So when we make a decision, it's based on what we believe is reasonably foreseeable. So if you say to a client, do you believe that there's anything that's going to impact your future ability to repay the loan? And that they say to you, well, we are going to have kids in the near future, that will obviously impact their ability to repay the loan. However, if they've not yet had kids, and that might be 1, 2, 3 years down the line, we can only base current expenses and current expenditures at point in time. So what we mean by that is at settlement. So what you would do in that instance is it's similar in a similar way with an exit strategy. As an example, you would take them through in real life what will they actually do in that situation, and ascertain from that whether or not that loan is still suitable and whether or not they'll be able to afford the repayments. So what is their actual intention? If in 18 months that if they have kids, have they considered how they will still be able to pay the loan? And what you would then do is just capture that information Neil, maybe you want to bring it up on the screen where you would actually capture that in the down under, I think it's family lifestyle. You just capture that conversation in detail, exactly how they will still be able to afford to pay the loan. As an example, it may be that, you know, they've got $80,000 in an offset account, and that they will use those for the 6-month period where the woman is on maternity leave, as an example. And so hopefully that answers it. If there's any other examples relating to that, happy to jump on and see what we can do.
Great, thanks, Dave. Sue's great question, Sue, and that's something that's definitely definitely very popular inside Kenny. And I know Jace, we've had a lot of discussions about where we want to go with that, and it's precisely to make that a digital consent, which is actually part of the Hello Pack. Jace, I know it's always hard talking about future plans with technology and things like that, but this is definitely on the radar. Did you want to give a bit of an update on that one?
Yeah, I mean, improving the entire process of people understanding how we protect their data, and getting the consents we need, not just to share data with third parties like AOL, but also to do credit checks is on the radar. Working with compliance to figure out how to approach that and trying to prioritize in the roadmap. For the moment, just to be clear, the current process is that when you send a Hello Pack, you can attach the current credit guide attach the current privacy consent form, and ask the clients if you want them to do credit check early, to return that signed, and then the gate opens for you to do that credit check. If you're not doing credit checks, you can actually wait until later in the process. But we're going through the process of trying to make that a bit more streamlined for both you and particularly the clients. When we release that, you'll learn more about it.
Great, thanks, Jace. James's question, is there an autosave function for this to stop people from typing a lot of notes in and then they get lost? Is that Neil, is that you?
Probably more Jason.
Sorry, I was reading questions in the chat. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so it's the autosave. James is asking about the autosave. So being diligent and typing lots of notes in, but what is the autosave function, or when potentially could that information be lost if you logged out and forgot to save or something like that? What's the save?
It generally speaking, when you mouse out and click of that field, it'll save. So there's no, you can see on each page, there's no save button. That works for both the goal setter process and inside of my CRM. But yeah, generally speaking, it should auto save, but it's always, yeah, that's the answer. I'm just a bit thrown, sorry. The reason I'm thrown is because in my CRM it auto saves. I'm just trying to remember whether tell me about it in more detail, auto saves or then saves on the click to next. That's why I'm a bit thrown, because I haven't actually got the answer. So let us get back to you on that. In my CRM it auto saves. Here I'm not 100% sure.
Great. A couple more questions on the privacy statement. Yes, Jason, the privacy is actually included in the Hello Pack. It's whether that gets signed. So you need an indication from the client that they've seen it, read it, and accepted it. Where we would like to go, that would be a digital signature, where the client approves that before proceeding into the fact find. At the moment, it is a signed one. Fiona's got a question whether that can be DocuSign. That's a good question, actually. We just need an indication from the client that they've accepted the terms. I'm assuming DocuSign would be okay in that circumstance. Dave, are you still available to answer that?
Sorry, what was the question, Matt? I was just responding to a text message. Sorry.
Yeah, so with the current privacy statement, where the client confirms with us, currently we need a response from the client that's not embedded in, and where we would like to go is to embed it. Yeah. But if that was done via DocuSign, is that going to satisfy us in terms of that privacy consent?
Yeah, it will.
So
And I know Jason, I won't put Jason under any pressure in terms of the digital exam. I don't think that's too far away. I know we don't want to commit to stuff, but
yeah,
yeah.
that's a very popular one in Canny that the brokers are looking for. That comes up a lot, so it's something that we're working on and definitely would like to do. Ange, I think Ange is asking this question. We do get this question a lot as well regarding the word count limit. There is a word count limit in there, Jace?
I don't think there is.
So we tested it quite a bit, and I've gone pretty far into it, like paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs, and it hasn't stopped me yet. But doesn't mean it won't. But so far I've gone really deep into it, and I've never been stopped.
Yeah, we generally try not to do limits unless there's a good reason. So I don't think there is.
Cool, very good. All right, well, we're starting to, yep, the pressure's on Jason. That's why he's in the car, to get a quick getaway if he needs to. Cool. Any other questions that people can see there that I haven't been able to cover?
Maybe in terms of that auto-saving thing, you'll note that when you're working in the goal setter and you return, if you've got MyCRM open in a separate tab, you do need to refresh the page when you go back to MyCRM, which is what you saw Neil do before. But the data will flow through. It just takes a refresh for it to become visible.
It's probably just worth mentioning too, the reason why under best interest duty this becomes important is because the requirement now is when the broker is dealing with the client, as we said yesterday, the recommendation to the client that comes before the loan has actually been lodged with the lender. So the lender will have some requirements in terms of some questions that they ask. The best interest duty is actually between the client and the broker before the loan application has actually gone through. So the reason that this becomes important is because documenting what the client has told you is really important to them, is the key indicator about why you've made the recommendation that you've made. And linking the two, and we'll have a look at this in the game plan tomorrow, linking your recommendation so that it aligns with what the client's trying to achieve is the best way to protect you. Because if the client's saying, this is what I was after, when I sat down with the broker, this is what I told the broker I was after, that being documented is really good, because we all know that post this, whether it's 1 month, 2 months, 2 years, 3 years, in a complaint situation, everybody forgets what it is that they actually said and what the discussion was, and that leaves the broker vulnerable. What we want to make sure is that that information is collected, it's replayed back to the client, and the recommendation aligns with what it is that the client said, and that document is then embedded in the system forever, so that anyone that wants to come back and have a look will know exactly what you were thinking and why you recommended that loan to the client. That's a really important part of keeping you safe, is that we lock down both those bits of information so that we can protect you. A couple more things that have come through. Anything else? Can you do voice to text straight into the game plan? So did you want to?
Nicole probably isn't on this call, but there are a number of ways that you can do voice to text, depending on what sort of device you're using. So if you're using a Mac or iOS device, it comes as part of that device that you can click within a field and then do voice to text and automatically enter that in. So if you're using, for example, an iPad, it's very good at that kind of stuff. Other ways of doing it are you can do voice to text into everyone has access to Google Docs, and Google Docs has a voice to text command that will allow you to, for example, just do text notes and then copy them in. We're not really planning on building our own voice to text engine, just because as time moves on, it's becoming a standard part of a lot of computers, like for example the Macs, and there are applications and enhancements to Chrome and different ways of doing it. So there are a number of ways of doing it. Thank you, Ange, for throwing that in. and I'd suggest you explore them. The better ones are the ones where over time they learn. So they learn about the particular quirks of your voice, like me, I mumble, and they get better. So it's yeah, a lot of brokers really like doing it. And if you look in Springboard, there's a few case studies on people who do it well.
Yeah, and as Ange has put down, we'll cover this in a bit more detail in the notes presentation on Thursday, because we want to cover, how do you get notes in from emails? How do you get them in from text messages? How do you get them in, how do you get them in through voice to text? So we'll cover that quite a bit on Thursday. Neil will be back again doing a session on that. So look, it looks like we've exhausted the questions. We won't keep everyone up. Again, we appreciate you taking the time. Excellent job, Neil. Thank you for running through that and doing that so clearly. That's really good. There is a question from Sue. Just while we're on the topic of notes, what I was understanding at least paragraphs.
Yeah, it's about, I can take that. So again, another big canning request that comes up during last week was the ability to format notes. So things like enter bullets and have the same level of control you have over notes. When you see the game plan, you'll see that at least from a client's perspective, there's no need to add that formatting. We've sort of taken care of it and it looks really good without that. But again, I think, yeah, when we move from the CPA to the game plan, turn up tomorrow, you'll see something, how it works. And then maybe we can have another run at this question.
Excellent. I think that it's an important point, because the goal setter and the game plan, they're sort of part one and part two. So we're going to see the game plan tomorrow, and Cole's going to run through that tomorrow. And as Jay said, feedback we've been getting on the professionalism of the output and the document, I think you'll really get a lot out of that. So come and join us tomorrow. Right now, again, thank you, Neil. Thank you, Dee, for answering all those questions as and when they came up. And thank you, Jace, for your comments on the way through as well. Thanks, everyone, for turning up. We'll see you same time, same channel tomorrow, and we'll go through the game plan with Nicole Ferguson. And I think that will sort of fill in another bit of the jigsaw puzzle. Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.